No, io sono una persona fortunata perché fra le tante occasioni della vita ho l'opportunità oggi di presentarvi una persona che stimo profondamente dal profondo del cuore, che è Diane Foley, che è qui con noi. Diane Foley è la mamma di James Foley, un giornalista che è stato ucciso dall'ISIS mentre faceva il suo lavoro da freelance in Siria. Ma la cosa più straordinaria, perché vogliamo bene alla signora Diane senza conoscerla, perché la conosciamo davvero, o almeno la conosciamo attraverso un grande libro scritto da un grande scrittore, Colum McCann, che si intitola Una madre, edito da Feltrinelli, e che nella versione americana si chiama An American Mother. E il centro di quel libro è la storia di Diane, che qui le chiediamo di ripercorrere. Perché ha voluto lei cercare, questo racconta il libro di Colum McCann, ha cercato con ostinazione di conoscere e poi di perdonare l'assassino di suo figlio?
Well, I wasn't sure how the encounter was going to go with Alexander Cody because I had never met him. But when he offered to meet with victims, I knew Jim would have wanted to meet him, would have wanted to hear his side of the story. And I, as a mother, wanted to share who Jim was with him. So my expectations were low. I didn't know what to expect. But I prayed a lot about it because as the time got closer, I was a little more unsure and a little nervous about it. And no one was interested in going with me except Colin McCann, my friend. And so Colin was curious and he came with me. And in the course of talking to him, I really felt like the Holy Spirit was present because I was able to see Alexander as the young man he is, who's made horrible mistakes, he's hurt many people. But he's also being hurt now, It was a very sad encounter in many ways. When you hate, it produces much hurt. Many people suffer when we hate. And the violent jihad had made him do horrible things, really. And I really feel that he was repentant in many ways, and he expressed remorse. So it was a moment of grace in many ways, Alessandra. It really was.
E durante il rapimento di suo figlio lei ha combattuto anche con lo Stato americano per avere informazioni, sapere qualcosa, spingere lo Stato a trattare, no? E, questo è un aspetto che colpisce molto perché oggi tutto il mondo guarda a Gaza e uno si chiede perché c'è questa rigidità quando c'è un rapimento nel parlare degli ostaggi.
Well, when Jim was taken, our country refused to negotiate. And that is partly why we started the James Foley Foundation, because I knew we could do better, that as a country, we should negotiate for our people. And since 2015, more than 170 Americans have come home. So our country has realized the value of negotiating. And actually, our country has helped with Qatar. Many hostages from Israeli hostages have been released. But the problem is, of course, the remaining ones. It's so sad, but a lot of it has to do with both countries, Hamas and Israel. I mean, people have to be willing to listen to one another and negotiate. And if they're not, the poor people suffer. So those who are held captive on both sides suffer. The innocent ones suffer, particularly, those starving, and many journalists who are citizen journalists wanting to tell the world what is happening. They're suffering. I mean, 4 were just killed yesterday. So it's a huge tragedy, and it continues unless we're willing to talk to one another, hear one another, and negotiate. So, but it's difficult. I mean, it's very difficult. It requires moral courage. One has to dare to hear, dare to listen. It's very difficult, but it's needed. So it's so needed. And we need that leadership that dares to make those things happen.
Assolutamente. E lei prima accennava alla fondazione intitolata a suo figlio, James Foley Foundation, che si occupa anche quindi non solo di trattative per persone rapite all'estero, ma anche di salvaguardare in genere i diritti dei giornalisti. Il giornalismo oggi non è più considerato, come è stato in altri periodi della società, della cultura contemporanea, qualcosa di importante. Fa impressione quanti giornalisti sono morti anche recentemente.
Yeah, so many. And more journalists are being targeted, not only in conflict zones, but also domestically. With riots or scandals, or some journalists are targeted online, and domestically, a lot of minority journalists, like women and, minorities, are definitely targeted. So it is becoming a real act of bravery, to be a journalist, more and more, to be honest. And so our foundation works very hard to make sure that students studying journalism learn how to be safe the best they can, so that they become aware of how to do digital security, how to do risk assessment, how to do the safest interviews for both the sources and themselves, and how to keep their families safe. In some cases, families are attacked of journalists. So it's becoming a very dangerous profession, to be honest. I mean, it's like a policeman or a fireman, and yet we need them desperately, particularly free societies. We won't have any idea what the truth is if we don't have journalists who are digging for the truth and listening to all sides of a situation. So, but it is a very frightening time. And particularly with technology, some of the technology is causing disinformation and causing, I'm hoping that AI can be used for good. But there's threats with AI that can be used to obscure the truth in many ways. So this is one of our biggest challenges of today. How is the truth heard? How do people who want to know the truth hear it? Because it's a lot of noise in the world right now. And that's why we need brave journalists who can speak the truth to power, to the world. Yeah.
Una cosa che mi ha colpito nel rileggere questo libro per preparare l'incontro, il bellissimo incontro qui al meeting, è che a un certo punto del libro si racconta che Papa Francesco l'ha chiamata al telefono e le ha detto: suo figlio è un martire. Mi ha colpito particolarmente perché in quest'anno ho lavorato sempre per la mostra sui martiri d'Algeria e ho trovato ci sono molti punti in contatto, no? Questa affermazione è un'affermazione su cui riflettere. Ecco, volevo sapere lei come ha riflettuto su
I don't
questo.
know. As a mother, I have been challenged by Jim. I really have. Jim was our oldest son, and I loved him. He was our beautiful son, very loving, wonderful young man. But I did not realize the man he grew into. So Jim was a man of great courage. Jim became a man who wanted to make a difference in the world. And I think some of that came from his first college. He went to Marquette University, a Jesuit school, and their motto was "Be the difference." And I think Jim kind of, from the first years there, he tutored in the inner city, teaching reading, and he developed this desire to kept volunteering. So even when he was in graduate school, he volunteered at various places for young people to earn their degree so that they could. So Jim really started to develop a real social conscience, about social justice. And then I think when he found journalism, because he did not think he was a good enough teacher. He tried Teach for America. He taught for many years, and he loved it. He really liked it, but he didn't think he was good enough. But then when he found journalism, that was what he wanted to do. He wanted to write. He wanted to tell stories. He wanted to listen to people. And because Jim was a very good listener, because he was curious. He wanted to know why a person did what they did with their life. And that's why he would have wanted to interview Alexander Cody. He would have wanted to. So I've been very challenged by Jim because he grew into a man with deep courage, but courage in a moral sense, like wanting to do good with what he found. And he realized the importance of journalism for the world, that the world needs to hear the truth. They need to know when people are suffering around the world. They need to know. And they won't know unless there are brave journalists telling the world what's happening. So Jim has challenged me to be a better person. He's challenged me to trust in God the way Jim did, because Jim spent nearly 2 years being starved and tortured by ISIS because he was an American journalist, just because he was Christian, because he was a journalist. And I really feel he grew in faith and strength, and that's challenged me. So both my God and my son have challenged me to be a better Christian, to dare to live the way God wants me to be, the best I can be in God's eyes, It's challenged me big time, So my son has been, as I think God has used him to challenge me and many others in a big way, Alessandra. He's inspired me.
Io penso che non abbia ispirato solo lei, no? Che questo è il contributo della memoria di Jim che arriva a tutti noi, no? Una testimonianza. No? L'attitudine di Jim alla preghiera, il fatto che si dice nel libro lui pregava diverse volte al giorno, lo hanno secondo lei aiutato?
I really feel that Jim was strengthened definitely by his prayer. And I know that when he used the 5 Islam calls for prayer, it was a time when he could communicate to his God. So I know that the prayer strengthened him. He told me, because Jim was kidnapped in Libya briefly for 6 weeks. And during that brief captivity, he told me he could feel our prayers, and that he just could feel, he grew in faith. When he was a little boy, he was an altar boy, but not especially religious. He was not. He was like an ordinary kid, and he was not particularly pious. But I could tell that when he got in these life or death situations, that he felt the presence of God. And his first release from Libya was really a miracle, and he knew it. You know, it was miraculous that he survived that. And I really feel that Jim grew in faith. No question. No question. Because one of his friends did a movie called Jim, the James Foley Story. And in that movie, I learned how Jim was in during those years. I didn't know. But listening from the other survivors, I could tell that Jim had grown much bigger and more kind, more compassionate. He was heroic to me and definitely challenged me. Yeah. So I know that God was transforming him in a big way.
Il grande cantante Sting ha fatto una meravigliosa canzone, veramente commovente, sulla storia di James, che si intitola in inglese An Empty Chair, che in italiano vuol dire una sedia vuota. È la sedia vuota in cui James, non siede più, ma la canzone, lo dico per chi non la conosce, e chi non la conosce la deve andare a sentire su YouTube, perché dove si trova gratuitamente. In questa splendida canzone Sting si mette dal punto di vista di James e dice a sua mamma: io non ci sono, la mia sedia è vuota, ma io sono qui con te. E allora volevo chiederle che cosa è stato per lei questa canzone e l'amicizia con Sting e come è nata questa canzone, se lei lo sa.
Well, Sting is a very talented musician, but also a wonderful man. And the director of the film was a childhood friend of Jim's. And Brian asked J. Ralph to write the music and Sting if he would consider writing the lyrics. And at first, Sting said, oh, he couldn't. He didn't know what. But he said it was also Thanksgiving time in the United States when all our families gather to give thanks. And he thought about his family gathering around the table. And that is when Sting thought of, if one of mine were not here, that chair would be empty. So he is just amazing, you know. And the song is so poignant, so beautiful. And he's been very generous about it. I mean, he came to our Foley Awards last year in Washington, D.C. and played the song for everyone. So that was a huge gift, huge gift. Yeah, very, very, very moving song. And I think the song speaks of everyone's grief when we lose someone we love.
Yes.
You know, and that's what's so beautiful about it. Because everyone has an empty chair in their life, you know?
Questa canzone ha senso nello stesso tempo proprio perché è un modo metaforico, poetico, lirico, musicale per dire la morte non ci distrugge del tutto. Non tutto è finito con la morte e alla fine la può capire chi ha il senso della resurrezione.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. I think that's the other side of it, that Jim is present. And Jim is present, and that's why I love speaking to people about Jim and people who are inspired to do good, because that's how Jim lives on. Jim lives on in other people, you know, when they're inspired to do good, you know, when they are inspired to be a journalist, to dare to report the truth, you know, even when it's dangerous, when the martyrs in Algiers, you know, gave their life for the people, you know, the people needed them and they had this bond with them, you know, and so they have the courage to stay, even though they knew it was dangerous. Jim certainly knew it was getting dangerous. It was getting more and more dangerous in Syria. But he felt committed. He felt called to do that, you know? And I think we all need that kind of moral courage to use our gifts for good because our world struggles, you know? And we need the power of good and love to get stronger. And that's why this conference is so beautiful, because it brings together so many good people like yourselves who volunteer. You're here because you love God and you know that you need to share stories of goodness and courage and strength because the world needs it. You know, we all need to be inspired by that goodness, you know.
Thank you very much, Diane.
Oh, Alessandro, good questions.
It's a big honor to stay with you in this occasion. And you participated to the New York encounter, and you have said already many things about the meeting. But your first impression here, which is your first impression here?
I'm very impressed with the spirit here, that the spirit of faith. I mean, the strength of so many people gathered because of their goodness, really, because they care about goodness, they care about people understanding that goodness, the God of love, the God of truth. You know, that's very inspiring. 3,000 volunteers. I mean, all of you here. I mean, giving of your expertise, your time. To me, what a grace. I mean, the world needs more of this. We need to know it's possible, you know? And I think we need that encouragement, you know? We need to be encouraged, Alessandro, because it can be discouraging. And I love that children are here, because I think youth, particularly, we need them to be encouraged and inspired, you know,
Yes.
to make a difference in the world and to use their gifts for good. So this is a very inspiring and unbelievable.
So,
Giorgio.
thank you very much, Diane. Thank you for your witness. Una cosa per cui voglio ringraziare pubblicamente Diane per il suo splendido libro, opera anche di Colum McKell, di essere qui con noi, ma c'è una frase nel suo libro che lei dice: un genitore è grande perché mostra ai propri figli le cose invisibili, che sono quelle che contano della vita, attraverso le cose visibili.
Well, I think that's true. We all do that, you know, whether parents or not, right? Yeah. Don't you think we all teach by, that's scary sometimes. You know, you've got to make sure we're teaching love, that we're modeling what the world needs. But it's challenging to be a parent.
A lot.
Yes. It's very challenging to model the kind of behavior that we hope will grow in our children, right?
So, thank you again.
My pleasure, Alessandro.